The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the ForceCenter podcast feed, and this particular episode of ForceCenter is a deep dive. We're going to be diving deep into the great High Republic novel, The Rising Storm by Cavan Scott. Very excited to dive. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Napzok. It's our review or discussion, and this one, I guess, is on time for roughly the book release, Joseph. Usually, we traditionally, our book discussions come out a bit later, but we've had this book in our hands, and we wanted to get it out, and once you pick it up, you kind of can't stop reading.
Absolutely not. And that's one of the things we'll definitely be discussing. This one grabs you and does not want to let go. So hopefully, I think a lot of people have been excited for it and probably got it the day it came out. But as always, if you haven't read it or listened to it yet, we do full spoilers. We often start our conversation with what happens on the last page of the book. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, we have an offer for you. In fact, today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player, or all of them if you own all those things. We are recommending the book that we are discussing today, The Rising Storm by Cavan Scott. If you haven't checked it out and you want to, stop this podcast, go get this on Audible, listen to the whole thing, and then come right back here. You will be listening to Star Wars Thoughts for hours and hours and hours. If you want to do that, you can download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. And we do have another offer.
We do indeed. Inside Editions, publisher of a ton of great Star Wars books and more in the pop culture world, is offering 35% off across their entire website with a special ForceCenter code. To get your discount, enter the coupon code FC35, FC35, or visit the website with this link, insideeditions.com/discount/FC35. This week, we're recommending the Inside Editions book, Secrets of the Jedi, which is also related to this novel that we're reviewing here today. Check it out with the code FC35. There you go. Some deals for our listeners and friends, Joseph.
This is really great because I think one of the things that the High Republic is all about in storytelling is this idea that things are connected, all people can be connected. And so far, all of our plugs are very connected to what we're talking about today, which is great. We're going to dive in, like we said, full spoilers, but we're going to start big picture. Ken, what is your big picture reaction to this novel? Love it, like it, struggle with it? What happened?
What happened indeed? Well, I'll start even before the novel fell into my greasy hands here. Big anticipation for this one. No secret, we here at ForceCenter just really love what's been going on with the High Republic era, the world they're building 200 years prior to any previous time we'd really explored a modern canon. So I was like, this one is the continuation of, in a way, of Light of the Jedi, right? This is kind of the adult novel for Star Wars, which I would make a joke about, adult, but then this book came out, and now it actually makes even more sense. So I was really excited. Anticipation high. Plus, I love Cavan Scott, love his previous work, love the comics. I have a slight problem with Cavan Scott for making me care about Jackson. I'm working through that, but he's done a great job there. So at the end of the day, all that to say, Joseph, I really love what I got. Really love what's here. Really love the stuff that's resonated, has hit me on, personal levels, which is why I love diving into Star Wars stories. Plus, I think it successfully has continued to move this era forward. Does that sound like a generic reviewer's sentence? It does, but it also has great meaning.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I think you're right to sort of tee it up. Light of the Jedi was the big, by Charles Soule, was the big kickoff. We really, really loved that one, really responded to it. And all of the different comics and the different books at different, in the industry reader levels, I think they're all telling a good story together, and you can read them all together. But it's feeling like what the plan is these big adult releases are the ones that are kind of going to tell the big picture story. We got the whole big incident in hyperspace at Hetzel in the first book, and now this we have the fair. So this is really, in some ways, kind of a sequel, to a continuation to Light of the Jedi. And I think for me, definitely anticipating as well, love all of Cavan Scott's work and really loved Light of the Jedi, I was delightfully surprised by this, in that I think it did continue that big picture story. I think this book in particular really delivered to me what I was excited about for the High Republic, which is the just huge amount of Jedi, right? But specifically, this book delivered on the fun fantasy of Jedi, of knights with fantastic powers, and the philosophy of Jedi, of we are trying to walk this path that is very difficult. In this book, just so delivered on both the fantasy and the philosophy of tons of Jedi in action. Like, you know, me as a kid, just loving Luke Skywalker and going, but what's it like when there are hundreds of them? You know, the prequels show us a version of that, and these novels can show us an even, in some ways, more in-depth version of, but there are hundreds of Luke Skywalkers, thousands of Luke Skywalkers, using Luke Skywalker as a generic term for Jedi. Yes. So I really love that. And then I also just love that it was a truly different experience of reading a Star Wars book, because it was structured differently. This book to me was like a bomb that you knew was going to go off, because the Republic Fair is not just going to be like, and everybody had a happy fair and the end, right? So there's so much buildup to the fair, and this great sense of building dread and doom. So this whole book to me is like a bomb with a long fuse. And when it finally explodes, I had to go back and mark it, because it was such a great experience, an interesting experience. That explosion goes off for 132 pages.
Yeah.
It is on page 208 that Bell senses, oh, the Nile have come to the fair. It is page 340 where Stellan is weeping while holding Lena So. And that there's no respite, right? We don't cut to something peaceful going on anywhere else. So it is kind of remarkable to have 132 pages in this edition of straight chaos, horror, and heroism. And what I enjoyed about that is this was a book that kind of forces you, at least this was my experience, to feel what the characters feel, to feel the story as much as to, just absorb it or intellectualize it, but to feel it, because there are these short, punchy chapters throughout, this great adventure serial style, but also just there's too much going on to pay attention to. Not too much going on to pay attention to in the sense of like, what did I just read? But it's overwhelming, and you don't know what's going to come at you next. And the way it is written, with no respite, makes you feel the chaos and the horror that the Nile wants you to feel. But then you also feel that joy, those moments where the Jedi break through and save someone and make a difference.
Yeah, all well said. Because I think I actually said out loud, my dog heard me. I said, "Here we go," when it starts, and I was really excited for it to start in a way. Meaning, you like you said, 208 pages of not just setting the scene in some generic kind of way, but just really taking the time. This is a great use of the medium. You can't really do this in films as much, I think, but the anticipation of battle, Return of the King comes to mind, some stuff in Two Towers and Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, the final battle with the Night King, kind of, have an episode to kind of wait and get through it. But everything's coming, right? And it's right when it starts, and those other properties, it's fun as a viewer or reader to, oh, here we go. But like you said, I can't imagine it's going to be all roses here. So that really worked for me, where the first part of this book really takes its time to set up. And there's might be a couple moments of like, where me personally, I'm like, okay, let's get going. Let's start fighting. But then, we're going to spend some time over here. And then it all comes together. And then you just described as feeling the characters and understanding their journeys a little bit more. That's a great use of the medium to tell this big fight.
Yeah. And I think it's well done that there's moments of action during that long fuse period before the bomb goes off.
Yeah.
So you feel that, like, remember that this is the kind of galaxy where Bell can feel like he's got a handle on everything, and then bam, he gets hit in the gut with a harpoon. Yeah. And it's that great way to tell you, like, just wait a little while. We are really setting the table. We're really letting you know these characters, and then this book is going to hit you all in the gut with an emotional harpoon.
Yeah.
One other big picture thought for me is I really like to see Star Wars have different genres influence it. Like Star Wars is always Star Wars, but a part of what makes Star Wars is pulling from different ideas. And this book, because it spent so long in just unflinching tragedy and horror, it reminded me of like old disaster movies, like the Towering Inferno or the Poseidon Adventure meets Star Wars, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, especially the chaos of it, especially anytime someone would there be moments of pause where they look out and just kind of describe or feel or experience the damage going on, and even from the Niles' point of view, and it you felt those moments.
Yeah, and just like all we want to do is get off the ship, but we can't get down the hall. Now we can't get down the elevator. Now we can't get the door open. Now we can't get the ship started. It really gives you that sense of horror and claustrophobia of truly being in the middle of a massive tragedy. And I think that was interesting to bring that mood and that feeling into Star Wars in such a big way. And then the other thing for me is I think Cavan Scott is a great author. And one of the reasons that I love his work on Star Wars is that he, to my aesthetic, or to my opinion, he brings some of his other work and his other clear loves into Star Wars. There's some characters that, for me, totally fit Star Wars, but have a little bit of the wild imagination that Doctor Who often has. And Cavan Scott has worked in Doctor Who. Cavan Scott has started that Tales from Vader's Castle stories. He's clearly a fan of horror, in cosmic horror in particular. And you get things like at the beginning, we get Elzar Mann checking the Gagarin Codex, an ancient grimoire, and as it turns out, the Leveler is this very unknowable cosmic horror Lovecraftian type beast. So you get these different flavors within Star Wars, which just makes the Star Wars of it richer to me.
Yeah, it's funny because all through this, there were so many times where I'm like, well, that's a real crazy kind of alien species. That's a gelatinous creature that's a Jedi, like all this kind of thing that was totally fits with Star Wars, but totally the detail in some of the characters. Quinn Amarant pops to mind, of just his arms, his clackers, everything about it. It was you could tell Cavan Scott was having fun with it. I think that's a great point you made there.
Yeah. And then my last big picture reaction is, even if I didn't like this book, which I did, it would be all worth it for Orbelin, the mucus in a suit Jedi. Great. Well, I'll be saying some more about Orbelin, but I really enjoyed Orbelin.
Yeah, you got mucus in a suit. Don't worry. The Jedi got something for you.
Excellent. So one of the big differences, I think, in High Republic storytelling from other eras of Star Wars publishing in particular is that almost anyone could die, right? Was death and the threat of it effective in this book? Were you moved? Were you scared for specific characters? Were you surprised by injuries and death? How did that part of the High Republic, the promise of anyone can die, how did that work for you?
It's working. It keeps working. It's just a simple little trick. But there was moments where I was worried for Bel Zettifar, not even early in the book, but later in the book, right, where I'm like, in my head, I'm like, well, he seems like they've invested in this character for on the long term, right? But I would have thought that about a couple, at least one other big character than this. We'll get to. Yes, we're talking about spoilers, but we'll get to. So yeah, is it effective? It really is working because we don't know anything, and now that. Complaint sometimes we hear, or sometimes it's brought up of plot armor, and that happens in every franchise, Star Wars too, I understand, but also, or the idea of we already know their end, they are going to die, why do I want a TV series diving into that character? All valid maybe concerns to some folks, out the window here. And each page, each chapter, each big moment, it does work, and I am surprised by some of the characters that go.
Yeah, I think I felt a similar thing. I was really sort of, I definitely had the fear of death, but also just the fear of pain, because there was a willingness to put characters through absolute hell, right? So that really worked for me. But getting toward the end of the book, there's the big explosion at the fair, and a lot of people make it through, and then you're kind of worrying, like, but there's a lot of book left that it feels like the hammer's going to come down at the end, right? Mm-hmm. So as I was reading that, getting into like there's going to be this other explosion going on at the end that they don't anticipate. Yeah, I really started to feel like for Elzar or Stellan, are we looking at a Ned Stark situation
Mm-hmm.
where the power is turning the narrative on the head of like, well, it looks like we've totally invested in this character in this perspective, so they have plot armor, right? I was wondering if that could happen to Elzar or Stellan.
Yeah.
And I had that same fear exactly as you as Bell. But then there was just something for me about Bell that Star Wars is such a story of the next generation that I felt like Bell is gonna, he's the story that's been told about him about not that many people really kind of know he is. He's a Padawan, you know, but
Yes.
people keep meeting him and being impressed by him, and he keeps finding his way back to the light that it felt like, I don't know if that's that. It seems a little grimdark to take Bell out just thematically.
Yeah, no, which to your question is part of why it's definitely working for me. But I think you're right. There's so many. It almost was funny to me of Bell. What's his name? I've heard his name. Zeddy. That's right. There was a lot of those moments with the characters, which is funny, but also I think you're right. This is a first round draft pick. This is a kid you're going to build a franchise around, and I love that idea about Bell.
Yeah. And then my other thought is final spoiler warning for anybody who doesn't think we mean it. This is literally the last page of the book, and I'm going to say it. I did experience some tragedy in our discussions of Light of the Jedi. We talked about all the Jedi that we loved, and I liked a lot of them. I really did. But I was like, you know what? If I needed an action figure right now of one of these characters, it would be Loden Greatstorm. He was so great. And then, of course, he died. There's going to be an action figure of battle damaged Loden. I did feel Loden's death coming, and I was okay with it. It felt good. It felt right. Like I was so thrilled by his escaping and by his reconnection with Bell and the meaning of it and the power of it. And some of those moments with Bell and Loden toward the end, I literally cheered. Like my wife came into the other room because we were both reading in separate rooms, and she came in. Is like, so good things are happening in your book because I heard you cheer. I was like, yeah, it's not going to last though. I think it was just really well done to make it feel like this book is one where the Jedi are going to suffer. There's going to be a price to be paid, and Loden having this wonderful moment of freedom and connection felt like it's going to be pulled out from under him. And it made the death easier for me to take and felt right.
100%. So I wouldn't say I was caught off guard by it. I wouldn't say that I saw it coming, but there was a couple moments when, first of all, I was doing a real practical stretch out of his recovery in my head. I was like, all right, so if he gets back to Coruscant, what is he going to do? Would they give him some medicine first? I would just want like a big meal and a nap. Let me get through. Like I literally was just daydreaming out there when I was reading this book. And then there's a couple moments while I'm reading it where I'm like, that's so weird that it's almost like back to normal. Bell and Load, what a team. And Bell gets his, oh, wait, that can't last.
It's when Bell's going like, and we're going to get him some prosthetic Leku. And like, no, we're not, Bell. No, we're not. And I don't mean any of this as a criticism. I feel like it is structured well to surprise a reader, depending on how they approach a book. And I think it's set up well to give you that sense of dread of like, oh, we want him to survive, but it feels like he isn't.
Well, even the reveal, the final pages from Stellan's point of view, you're right. You got that sense of it's written so well, whether you expect it or not, you just got that sense of here's his comment. And it really, really well done there, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. Last kind of question in our big picture overview. So this is a kickoff along with Daniel Jose Older's young reader novel, Race to a Crash Point Tower. This is the kickoff of the second wave of the first phase of the High Republic. Did the book feel like its own story, a chapter in a larger saga? Both? How did you feel about that?
Both is a fair way to say it. There is, how do I describe it? It's like any season, any new season of Game of Thrones after season one. First episode, maybe sometimes the first two episodes have that like, hey, here's the people you loved where we last left them. Here's some new people. Get to know their names. Write them down. Take notes. That's Dragonstone. That's Stannis. And you kind of feel lost at a time, or even like, all right, get back to the Starks. I know them, and there, the beginning of the book had some of that where you're playing catch up, and none of this is how it should be. This is an ongoing series, and none of it was a problem. None of it was overwhelming, but just I remember about 5-6 chapters in going I really feel like season 2 episode 1's going on here right now, where I am being given a new playing board and new pieces are being introduced. And what that does is it makes me feel how much I love the previous books, where I'm like, okay, cool. I also want to get to give me more Elsa. Where's Ava? Oh, Ava's not in this season. Okay, got it. And all this, so it feels good. But that's why I love the High Republic era. We know it's part of something big, and then you feel it. And this one had a lot of. Now I'm more clued in what they're doing. Where Light of the Jedi, maybe I personally wasn't catching the. And over there's another story coming soon from Claudia Gray. This one had some very distinct moments of, oh, this young Padawan Rom saved the day. We'll find out about that another time. Thanks, Daniel Jose Older. He'll tell that story. And I just was more aware of it, which has actually made it more fun for me.
This is really great. Of all of your Game of Thrones comparisons, I think this has been one of your just chef's kiss, one of your best, because it really is like we're spinning the plates of, we're not done telling the stories about the characters you met the first time, but we're adding more characters. And I think what it is for me about what's great about this era is we are telling the story. This whole initiative is telling the story of this era. And there are definitely some main characters, but they could fall off, and then other main characters would take their place. And that's, I think, what's, making it different than, say, the Skywalker saga, or even the New Jedi Order, where, you're still going to be centered around the Skywalkers and the characters from the movies, right? That this really is the story of an era.
Oh, yeah, totally.
For me, for this book, this one absolutely did feel like, yes, it is its own story. This is the one where the fair gets attacked. That's what happens in this book, and the ramifications are set. But it also really felt like a chapter. It felt very much like the dark second chapter of a trilogy of, let's really torture these people. And I don't know if it is like, for the first phase of the High Republic, this is the middle adult book, and then we'll go on to the second phase. It's hard to know, but it definitely did feel like let's torture them to really take them to an extremely low place that they can try to climb up from. And then I think just from a, talking to other people about it, recommending it, like Light of the Jedi is just like one of those great, like, hey, you want to come in new to Star Wars? This is a brand new era. And the Rising Storm had some great recaps to just remind you of some of the characters, some of the situation at the time. So it brings you in well if you read Last Jedi or Light of the Jedi, but at the same time, like this book is not a jumping on point. It is the nature of this High Republic storytelling initiative, but it did really affect me of like, you cannot just pick up the Rising Storm, and that's the way the High Republic is going to be. Of like, if you want to jump on, great. Try Light of the Jedi, because this is not a jumping on point.
Yeah, which is fair to say, which is, I think, what they would want. Yeah, I mean, I've recommended Light of the Jedi to so many people who are like, I'm looking for a Star Wars book. I'm like, jump in here. Would I do that with this? Not necessarily, but that's, again, to your point, it's what they're trying to do, and they're doing it very well.
Yeah. Agreed. So let's get into some of the themes, some of the big ideas. We sometimes kind of bat things around. Sometimes for some of these larger, more complex novels, I try to write up what I feel like is really going on and ask some questions about it so we can bat back and forth. And I will also, of course, ask you, Ken, as we wrap up our theme discussion, if there's anything else that you feel like you wanted to pull out of here. So with that in mind, I felt like the big idea, the big thing that's in stake in this novel is very explicit in a great way, and that is this idea of unity versus lost connection. From the big picture to the small picture, macro to micro, the book tells stories of horror that happen to isolated people and stories of success when people can work together. And this is, of course, continuing on from the ideas that are set up in Light of the Jedi and all the other High Republic books about this Chancellor Lina So, who is really trying to get everybody on board this delicate belief that we are stronger together, that we are all the Republic. And then, of course, having the Nile and the Drengir and lots of other entities who want to attack that idea. So first, I wanted to talk about some of the big picture ideas of unity versus lost connection, right? Of the fair itself is a blatant celebration of unity. There's no digging for it. There's a unity arc. There's that great bit about the unity in song. So this is what Lina So is trying to do. It's one of her great works of, I'm going to literally bring us together. I'm going to share different cultural and even environments of different parts of the galaxy together and show, yay, we can all be together. This is great. Then we have this great moment of contrast where Markian Ro is feeling a little threatened in his leadership of the Nile and realizes he really needs to push back and bring all of these raiders, these warriors together. And he brings the Nile together under his leadership with the promise to attack the fair, kill So, destroy unity. So it is a kind of unity that he's offering by destroying unity. And then another kind of big picture thing for me is just the existence of the Nile, the way they operate. Their actual attack is isolating, right? They literally cut off communication on Valo, the home planet of the fair, the location of the fair. So there's that literal loss of connection with the rest of the galaxy. And then their actual battle tactics, right, is to put out the gas, the speakers pumping the music, so you can't focus and connect with anybody else. You can't think, you can't see other people, you are isolated and alone. And then this idea even gets furthered in the Nile's actual internal philosophy that they're working together, but they are constantly betraying one another. And that's happening a lot in this book, of the different leaders jockeying for position and wondering which person to betray when for the ultimate benefit. Versus the Jedi facing all of this pain and fear and trying so hard to work together, because they know if we're not isolated, if we're connected, if we have unity, that's when everything works. So those are my big picture, how this theme of unity and lost connection is functioning in the story. I got some specific questions, but first I just want to bat it back at you and ask if you have any big thoughts about that.
No. First of all, I'm not joking at all. You probably wrote the best book reports in school, and I hope you charge people to steal good money to steal them from me. No, I say this because for me personally, sometimes the way life goes and everything, reading Star Wars books, you take notes or you rush through it, and then you're able to just extrapolate the wonderful themes and lay them down. It makes it so much easier, not just to discuss it as a podcaster, but to digest it as a fan. So number one, I appreciate that. I want to give you credit for that, because this is a great, it just really puts it on the table. Here's what's going on, and the spirit of unity. By the way, the unity and song thing is great. I just imagine Cavan Scott writing around It's a Small World 20 times to get the feel of how to put that in the book.
It's so good.
It's so funny. It's so good. So this is it's all very clear, right? It's such a clear goal, but for the characters, not just the book, and then how everyone looks at that unity and everyone deals with the idea of unity, and how you fight against it or you work with it, or how you feel you're working with it, but maybe you're working against. Big, wonderful questions we're going to dive into. All put out in this, what I love, what I've been dying just to get people on board for in this High Republic era. Light of the Jedi starts at this. You and I talked about this Kennedy era Camelot, and how we could do great things if we fix things or work together, and how just human behavior for us here in the real world sometimes is naturally just going to fight against that. That's what's going on in the galaxy. So unity versus lost connection. It's almost an ideal versus ourselves.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I definitely want to get into how that is reflected in the personal journeys of our main characters. But I got some questions for you about these big picture things. So did you believe in So's unity? Because that's a lot in the first book, that she's got that great moment in Light of the Jedi where she reflects and knows how fragile it is to convince people that things can be better if you work together, that little things can break it. And she knows what a fragile thing that she is promoting and putting her whole back and her whole career into. And then she's kind of taken a step forward with her next great work of the fair, and people are concerned about it. Did you feel cynicism? Did you feel fear? Did you feel like Lina So was giving in to hubris? Were you like all behind her of like, yes, the fair is the right idea, go for it, promote unity? Or were you like, oh, Lina So, what have you done?
As someone who's grown up hating parades, this is a great question, Joseph, because sometimes my tendency is to feel a little cynicism towards stuff like this. But so all that to say, I feel bad for Lina So in this way, because she believes this. She wants to do good, and the idea is we are all the Republic and the spirit of unity. It's more than a catchphrase to her, but you have to kind of package these things as catchphrases, which is going to remove some of the nuance or make it appear as that's the way it's going to go when you're discussing this or trying to put this on a big scale. So I feel sorry for her that this is going on. There's there's nothing more she can do to make it all work other than to try. And there's nothing to curb egocentric souls. And then you have someone like Senator Tiatoon we're going to discuss who represents to me just kind of go with me here like a realistic based cynicism, which I want to discuss more on as just kind of a topic sentence. So because I'm really like want him to help, but there's more there from there. So at the end of the day, I really, as a character, I believe in her. I think she's a great character. She's a great leader. Gets in the action, rolls up her sleeves, and she believes it. And that's what she's going to take the slings and arrows and the barbs from her those around her who would disagree or fight against it, because she knows this is right. It's just a hard path to get there.
Yeah, exactly. She knows this is right, and it's a hard path to get there. And I do love Senator Toon's maybe political, maybe realistic, maybe sincere, but just really questioning, should we be having a big fair this soon after a great disaster? Is that a great way to show that the Nihil isn't a problem, or are you really tempting fate? And given that the book is all about the horrific Nihil attack, you kind of got to debate Toon's perspective, which we'll do. But in terms of like her great belief that, of course, working together is better. That's such a Star Wars philosophy. It's in the Phantom Menace in particular explicitly. It's in Luke having the compassion to connect with Vader. It's everywhere in Star Wars that together is better. Rise of Skywalker is a celebration of this idea. So I feel like in terms of like Star Wars philosophy, you want to be on Lena So's side. I am on Lena So's side in this big philosophical way.
Mm-hmm.
But the book did such a great job of exactly what you said, Ken, of like, in order to get people on board with this large, complex, beautiful philosophy, gotta package it and gotta sell it. And as soon as I package it and sell it, it risks coming off totally cheesy, insincere, just a platitude.
Yeah.
And I love the way the story was told. The United in Song joke is super funny, but it has that great depth, because like that's what happens when a beautiful philosophy has to be pared down into something that sounds like just an annoying earworm of like, you can't possibly really mean that. The lyrics are in the book and are really cheesy, right? And it's such a great real world picture of like, it's daring to believe in unity and hope and togetherness, because they can be just so cheesy and just an insincere platitude. So it's hard to get people to believe in the sincerity of them.
Yeah. And I have my own lyrics to that song too. Unity for us and unity for you. Yeah, I want to sing it too. But with Toon, I know we're going to talk more about Toon. We should, but his ultimate thoughts on how best to serve the Republic maybe come from a spot that makes sense. And there's a great twist in what they do with the character Senator Toon, but you can't help it. It undercuts. And I'm like, there's a time and a place. And I found myself, I think appropriately frustrated with him at times, but this is what these books have done so far, particularly the Light of Jedi and now Rise and Storm, have just taken Star Wars in this era and are playing around with morality and politics and social issues in Star Wars. And you can always make connections to the real world, or you can just look at them in Star Wars, your choice, do what you wish, but it's very realistic in this mythic Star Wars way. And Cavan Scott hit that out of the park too, just like Charles Soule and the other writers have done as well.
Absolutely. And I think even took it to this other place where, I could feel the strain of, oh no, this is going to not only be attacked, which is going to make people question the unity, but it's going to look too fake. That strain of it is really great. I really loved the moment where I think it was when the actual like ceremony was beginning, the Unity arc was going off, the song was going off, and so is opening the fair with like pomp and and pride and a tear, so you can see like I'm selling the message I have to, but I really mean it, and at the same time you get Stellan thinking, yes, this is right. This is the way the Republic should always be. This is what the Republic's about. This is what the Jedi are about. So you get that great contrast of they sincerely believe it. It's a great philosophy. It is in so much danger.
Yeah, ominous, and the opening of the fair, not unlike opening of Olympics, summer or winter games, doesn't matter. I've grown up watching those. My father and I used to watch them, and I used to never want to miss the opening ceremonies, which is weird because I never want to see a parade ever again in my life. But it's so over the top. It's halftime show cheesy at times, but you have all these great nations marching out as individual nations and individual competitors, but all coming together, the spirit of unity for the world and these great games. And I do buy into that, and I can get moved by it. And not just as a sports fan, but as someone kicking around this planet. So I love that moment. I love everything you're talking about it, because it is kind of like you got this song and it's cheesy and we're going to commercial break. But like the purpose behind it, if you let it flow into your heart, if you could take down that cynicism, which is a dangerous just kind of weapon we use against ourselves, I think sometimes it can be impactful. And I love the using the fair as the backdrop for a lot of what's going on.
Yeah, it was such a great idea. Works so well. Let's talk about the dark side version of this, right? Do you believe that Markian Ro's version of Unity can work? Because he basically gets the Nile to coalesce again, by bonding together in their selfishness. I mean, that's what the Nile are. Of like, we are all working together to take what we want. But can that work? Can a group bond together in group selfishness, individual selfishness within the group, and can groups bond over just a mutual desire to dominate and destroy?
So, so yes, unfortunately it can work, but I, we don't want it to, right? And I have Nile thoughts, man. I continue to have Nile thoughts, because it's another thing the High Republic era has done so well, and Cavan Scott comes in and adds some new wrinkles to it. I was not initially sold on this back in the early, when we started hearing about this. Marauders, and go check our Light of the Jedi discussion. I think I went into this a little bit more there, but okay, space pirates, and I just kind of brushed it off. Outlaws, it's so realistic, it's so scary. This is why I really like the Nile as villains. They're the embodiment of the dark side without being the dark side, right? Mm-hmm. Easier, more seductive. So going back to Toon, on some level, he raises good questions. Well, not agreeing with so, but I, believe in general, Toon seeks unity, his own kind of unity, more on the light side of things. We have that discussion in a second. But Ro is playing on the worst in us to tear at that unity. And what's he do? He's replacing it with shallow answers, shoving domination to the giant holes in the souls of those he's using. Because what I continue to love about the Nile, close my Nile monologue, Joseph. A lot of the Nile, we get it here with a lot of the characters, even some of the new Nile that we're learning about. A lot of the Nile have sad backgrounds, pain, suffering. They're all disenfranchised, and each story rings true in a way, right? So it's not, doesn't start out maybe as a mindless quest for power. It doesn't necessarily start there. It turns into that, because to me, they are craving the same connection as the characters we love here on the light side, as the rest of the galaxy. They're craving it. They've just chosen the wrong way to deal with it. And Star Wars does say there are bad choices in life and in Star Wars. And so therefore they're not connected. There's no family. And Ro is using that, not just for his power, but this horrible destruction, bodies strewn everywhere through this book, billions dead in the Light of the Jedi and previous, the huge numbers, all from him, a dangerous leader playing on the actual broken pain, the brokenness inside each one of these Nile, each one of them, down from Tempest down to Strike.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great way to say it. And later on in the book, we really start to get a picture of Ro being very similar, just as somebody with childhood issues, somebody who was treated poorly by their father and is still lashing out and still trying to escape being haunted by that individual horror and that individual pain. Yeah, I think what I really loved about seeing that contrast of like, here's this dark side version of Unity, is seeing that quicker and easier path to unity of, hey, we all feel that we didn't get a fair shake. We all feel hurt. So let's all unite beyond this idea that it's somebody else's fault and go get them. Yeah. And that it's so sad that it is well known throughout history of, the leader, the people, and the other to attack, create such a bond that horrible things can be done, horrible things have been done, and it's such a sort of structure to be aware of. But I also really like that the book does show that it is hard to maintain in the long run. That obviously these kind of things where a charismatic leader says, are you hurt? Great. You're right to be angry, and it's those people's fault. Go get them. That is terrifyingly effective. But it's hard to maintain because it is based on a unity that is based on anger and distrust, always points the anger and distrust back into the group, right? And nobody in the Nile is actually stronger. Their numbers are stronger together, but they're not getting any like personal strength from one another. They're all turning on one another. And if everything you see in the world, you think every problem can be solved by punching, eventually you are going to punch the person next to you no matter what, and it's a real good, like, hey, this is a real introduction to the rule of two.
Oh, yeah, it's very similar. And going back to even, evoking Luke and Yoda's conversation on Dagobah, that is the dark side stronger? Yoda says no, but this is how you get there. So yeah, you hope it doesn't last, but along the way, it takes so many people down. And how many times does Pan eat you, kill or destroy or run away from his own people?
That's his whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, great vision of the dark side. I think you put it so well. They are showing that the dark side is not just something for evil space wizards with red lightsabers. It is a cautionary tale for us all. Let's get to Senator Tiatoon. So Senator Tiatoon promoting this Defense Force program that is, he basically argues later in the book, like, look, I got no problem with the Jedi, but I just don't think you're enough. And the Republic should have its own standing army to defend itself. Is that idea a kind of unity of, hey, the Republic, let's all work together to have an army of our own? Or is that a lost connection to you of saying, we don't want Jedi, you go do your thing. We're going to do our thing over here.
I'll say kind of, right. It kind of to me feels that way. It's I don't know. It's kind of where personal journeys in life can come crashing into Star Wars for me. It's a slippery slope. I totally get what he's saying. I'm someone who's like, I have a landlord. She's great. I don't want her around. Let me handle it myself. and that's not always good. It's not always good. And so that's why I love how the book kind of dealt with it. I've got around page 90 is where Toon is really going into it. He's really, what I mentioned a twist, there's a part of it where he's set up initially, I thought, to be more of a bad guy in a way.
Yeah.
And he has a secret meeting and you're like, oh, there he is. And then that secret meeting happens and that element, the illegal dangerous substance there. And he's like, no, against the rules.
Well, and also like the nullifier is sort of to fight the Jedi. And he's like, I'm not trying to fight the Jedi.
Yes. And that's the twist. And that's just where it saw me, made me see him in a different light. I don't necessarily know, not a good or bad, but just a different light. It made the character more real because then stuff he's saying, you might feel like, all right, yeah, do we need to pay for this fare? Even if I, as a reader, don't agree with his idea of a standing army for the Republic, do I agree with his idea that maybe the fare was too much, too extravagant? I think these are fair questions. So it was a different kind of adversary and one that made so much sense. A really honest, look at the political differences going on in the galaxy. So to your answer, to your question, say, is it a kind of unity or lost connection? I think in the end, it's a lost connection. There might be a better way to do it, but I understand where it comes from.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that Toon is really great because, look, the story of the Clone Wars ultimately and Palpatine's great victory, not just against the Jedi, but against, the people themselves, is convincing them to raise an army out of just fear. Out of like, there's another and they're trying to get us, so we need to be real strong and punch them first. Strength, order, so this is a known fear. So when you're reading a Star Wars story and somebody's like, we need an army, a senator saying we need an army, that's like alarm bells in Star Wars. Yeah. But then you do dive into it, and Toon has some legitimate concerns about the danger surrounding the fare, which ends up being correct. But then I think the other thing that I really like is in exactly those pages you were talking about, 89, 90. Lena So is talking about, well, the point of this is the spirit of unity. And Toon says, yes, we've seen the posters, Chancellor, but all the propaganda in the galaxy won't distract from the fact that the fair is a dangerous extravagance. And a little bit later, he says, the Republic Fair is a dangerous vanity project that puts the lives of our citizens in jeopardy. And I just love that passage because it makes him a complex and interesting character, because he's raising a valid concern that the fair is dangerous. We don't truly know the threat level of the Nile, and maybe the Jedi and Lena So are being cocky. So he's got like a little bit of a point, but in everything he's doing here, he's making it political, and he is doing exactly what we were talking about, of using words of cynicism and fear to tear down the actual great philosophy of unity, trying to say to the Chancellor's face, this isn't an actual ideal that you believe in. It's a poster to further your political career. So like on one side, I believe and agree with Tiatoon, and the other side, I want to be like, no,
yeah,
you're the problem. You are killing this with cynicism.
Yeah. And I hope I hope we go on with this thread. In future storytelling, especially with So and the recovery, because I'm going to read from the book of Toon, verse 2 now here, Joseph, all along at home. He says, people think they're safe when this attack proves they're anything but. As do the other attacks that have blighted the frontier in recent months. These are the people your administration is failing, Madam Chancellor, he goes on. This is page 90, the attack, like you said, what doesn't happen until 208. We know, as he's saying these words, we get the sense that there's probably going to be something going on at the fair that's not good. So, in a way, you can take those words and say he's right, but exactly what you're saying, he's not building towards unity. There's better ways to do it. But I want to see, just as a reader and as a Star Wars fan, I want to see in a future book, So having to deal with literally these words here, because it's easy to say, look, he's right. And how are you going to recover from that? What's the next big great works you're going to do when you've failed at this last one, and how she can push through that and still achieve her goals?
Yep. It's the galactic struggle, the galactic version of the struggle of the Jedi, of how do you defend people without losing your soul? Without going, you're right, Toon, let's raise an army. Let's make everything about fear, and I love that is where the storytelling we're posed to do on a galactic scale. Mm-hmm. But with that, let's dive into the more personal version of this big theme of unity versus lost connection. You ready to dive in?
I love to.
Excellent. So this is where it really resonated with me. We've got the big picture version, but then also almost all of our individual Jedi, their struggles are on some level about a lack of connection. Elzar refuses to ask for help after his dark vision. He is pining for this lost connection with Avar. That prologue is probably one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars writing. There's that great quote where Elzar's talking about, like, I shouldn't go to people for help because I'm the one who solves problems. I don't come to people with problems. I'm the one who finds a creative way to fix them. So he's really like self-isolating and not asking for help or unity. And then you got Bell, right? We learn he's literally cutting himself off from the Force because he can't cope with the loss, the lack of connection to Loden. And then Stellan, wow, what an interesting character. We're going to dive into him, but he's still wrestling with processing the loss of his own master. He's still, wearing her lightsaber on his belt. And we kind of learn that he is wrestling with being a public figure who needs to be someone else for others. So he's striving to connect, but he doesn't really want to connect in this way, but he's trying to do this duty. So there's this great tension there. Loden, we see his horrific torture by Ro in the Uttersond, the mean Chadrafand, is designed to cut him off from connection. The new character that we meet, Ty Yorick, Saber for Hire, we eventually learn is haunted by all these Jedi tragedies of the past, which makes her want to be out on her own, not even give names to her droids or her ship, that kind of thing, and wanting to not connect with anyone. So almost all their issues are resolving around some amount of lack of connection. Mm-hmm. So what I wanted to ask you, Ken, is which of these stories of lost connection from the personal perspective of the Jedi was the most impactful to you? Did you relate to any specific Jedi and their issues?
Yeah, I always feel like you and I should like Rochambeau to reveal, like paper, scissors, rock. 3, 2, 1. Elzar Mann was mine.
I kind of thought that we might be Elzar Manning.
Are you Elzar Manning too?
I'm Elzar Manning. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, this is great. I wonder how similar and how different the approach is. That's fantastic. All of them are great. You're pointing out the list is a great reminder of some of them. The Bell Zediafar one is interesting. There's some stuff there, especially with Ember and what Ember represents. I want to get into, but yeah. So I guess should I go first, sir?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All right, Elzar Mann, because it's the most real, and it's not just the Jedi sex, though. We are going to be talking about that, I'm sure. But for me, it's the fear of exposing this weakness, the fear, the confusion, doubt, pain, everything you talked about of what he said in that wonderful prologue. It rings it rings true because this is where it gets personal for me. And I think, to be very clear, Man's story goes well beyond the bounds of who he is, as a character, as a gender, identity, anything of that. Anyone can connect this. I want to be clear with that. But I really, really connected to it, of just the things he's dealing with, and all these things he's got going on, and his isolating and not seeking any kind of help, not even talking about it, not feeling he can. It does have a basis in some real, just traditionally male dominated arenas, some I've been in myself. And so, often, you don't feel you can ask for help. You don't feel like you can admit that we lack clarity or the answers. We don't feel okay with being weak in a moment. We carry like a burden that doesn't need to be there. So it seeps into our lives. It seeps into how we treat others and what we look for in others. This thing, you mentioned it. I'm glad that he pines for Avar, which is a whole wonderful, interesting sub-story in their history. So he seeks comfort elsewhere, which risks causing damage to all involved. We sacrifice a better complete self. We isolate, and the problems fester. They take deeper root. We act out. We destroy, both intentionally and unintentionally. And Elzar Mann is this wonderful free spirit of a Jedi. This is why I was drawn to him in the first book. He's a tinkerer. He doesn't want to use the Force the same way ever twice. He wants to get out there. He pushes boundaries. I love that about him. But he's being held back. But his self-isolation is holding him back. It is hurting others in big ways and small ways. And he had to go to Valo to put it right. And I really hope he did, because I want to see what a character, what a person, what a man could do when he finally starts growing past some of these things, these obstacles he puts around him, or society puts around him. And Elzar Mann monologue.
It's a great Elzar Mann monologue, and I think you're right that it is utterly relatable. It is the universal through the specific. Lots of people can see themselves in Elzar Mann, no matter what. But I think it's really great insight to point out a little bit of toxic masculinity of feeling like I can't ask for help because everybody sees me as the person who's supposed to be strong. I think there's a little bit of that going on with Stellan. Absolutely, that is universal. As well. I think what I was affected by is he seemed to be wrestling with two things, and they totally fought one another. That he desperately wants connection because he is, as a Jedi, he is the spirit of unity. He's the spirit of discovery, of what can we go out and figure out. And I want to spend time with people, and I get strength from being connected to people. But also, I'm in a dark place, and I can't show anybody. So wanting connection and refusing help at the same time is just a self-made prison. And the pain of being in that place of, I deeply want connection, but I am afraid to show my full self because I will be judged. People who used to look up to me will look up to me. I think not to get too deeply personal, but I think like it spoke to me because for myself, I think I've had the lucky opportunity in life to sometimes be the person who from the outside seems like they've got their stuff together, and that I always want to be able, if I can, to help people talk through a problem that they have. And I've had a couple instances in my life where I've been able to just be there and listen to somebody else and try to help, and then open the door to be like, and this is the way I feel. And sometimes I've felt a little pushback where people are like, no. You're the stable one. You can't have problems, or it upsets me, or it upsets my idea that anybody can be stable. Don't be unstable around me. And maybe that's just me having some Elzar Mann-like insecurity, but that feeling that he expresses of, I'm the one who solved problems, not pose them, felt very, very real, very human to me. I'm sure many people feel that way of you can't let your guard down because that will somehow cause other people to feel fear or insecurity, and you can't do that to them.
Yeah, there were some beautiful moments between him and Stellan, right? Little, I guess, brotherly moments, from a lack of a better term, but just where that was clear and apparent. And when it finally broke through and he finally had some clarity, it felt really good because I like the character, but I'm rooting for him. But yeah, it's so true. And I know what you mean. Hell, you had a great conversation with me in a Vegas hotel bar when I needed it. And yeah, that can rock the boat. And again, like you said too, hey, maybe it's just my insecurities is the way I view it. And that's part of what I connected with Elzar Mann is sometimes we sometimes you don't even know how, but this, you have these feelings of how you're supposed to be in certain roles. And this is why I love what goes on in the world now, where we're pushing for breaking through old barriers of many kind. But now just talking about people and humans and a man like Elzar Mann. I think maybe it's why his name is Elzar Mann. It really resonates with me. I've been in that. I've worked with those guys who it's like, sometimes I wonder if you could just cry, you might feel better, and they feel they can. And this is why it sounds like a dark joke, but it's true. It's like you're gonna get a drinking problem and die of a heart attack at 50, because it's gonna tear you on inside. It's gonna destroy you intentionally or unintentionally. And then not being able to process the feelings in the situation with Avar, which, is an interesting side conversation, but then sliding it over to the other character. I just forgot her name and I was going to write it down. You've got it on this list here.
Samara. Yeah.
Ranun. And we don't know, interested to discuss, her perspective and her feel of the moment. Maybe she's like, nah, this is a fun night. See you next time. I don't get that sense. It reminded me of like George Clooney at the end of Up in the Air, where he makes this big thing and then he kind of, it creates pain and hurt. And, I thought I was doing right. Anyways. And so now because he can't deal with Avar Kriss, or the situation around Avar Kriss, I should say, he might hurt her. He might do something careless to her. And then he wakes up literally with his pants off, and there's the world's on fire in this area, this place he's supposed to be a marshal of now and protect. And it just spawns so many real world thoughts and discussions in me.
Yeah, the part of what I love about that prologue, there's so many great details, but that moment of like, I had a horrible dark vision. I don't want to tell anyone about it. So I got a little too drunk and I reached out to my this person who I'm very connected to and danced too close, and she put her hand on my chest and pushed me back. And just feeling that absolute feel of I can't or won't express the true reason that I need support and connection, and so I reach out for it in a sloppy, not entirely appropriate way, and then I feel the pain of that pushback. Yeah. But that pushback is kind of my fault, because I'm not able to tell the real reason that I need this connection.
Yeah.
I can't ask for it appropriately and accurately.
Yeah.
It's a real trap. I think also, just like Star Wars fans, were always going to be intrigued by the story of the Jedi and how do they define attachment and sex. And it's very easy to slip into jokes, which, I'm sure we'll do some sexy Elzar Mann jokes. But for me, I think just the way that he thought about the way sex was presented, as Elzar is just this kind of flowing open person, and sex is a physical act, but it's more that he's charmed by people. He wants to be close to them. He wants to be connected to them, and sexuality as a part of just being like, I just want to be closer to you. I just want to like know you. That was really, really human and really, really interesting.
Yeah, and then there's Stellan. I got flipping back here. Stellan around page 50 through 54 talks about passion. And passion, he gets questioned on, he has a passion for something, and strong passions are something we try to control within ourselves, as emotions can cloud our judgment, especially in stressful situations. But he goes on to say that Jedi, does not suggest that we cannot have desires or interests. And I'm not saying that it's okay for the Jedi to have sex. It's a different conversation. Rael Avros has some opinions too, but it is. It's just really interesting. As you said, we are fascinated with the Jedi as Star Wars fans and what that really means and how they function. And that could mean, hey, you want to get to know this person, maybe on an intimate level, but you also like maps.
Yeah, like, yes. And Indira says a version of that too when she's counseling Belle, of like, emotions are real and they're good and you should invest them, but you need to know how to handle them and let them go at the appropriate time so you don't cause damage with them. And I think Elzar, we're just getting to see him just twist around with that.
Yeah.
Let's dive into a little bit Stellan, because this is our big introduction to him. We've heard about him. We've known that he's going to be one of the main characters. We really get to see kind of behind the mask of a very sort of traditional poster boy hero, handsome, square jaw, big legend. Everybody likes him. And then we get to see like what's the reality? What's the really human reality for this sort of poster boy hero? Did that work well for you? Did you like Stellan and his story?
I really did. Great line. He's used to gaggles of adoring younglings that hang on his every word.
We really have been podcasting forever because so far we're writing down all the same things.
6 years and counting. Love you, man. Look, here is, it's, you and I think, have a kind of a same thought too about Obi-Wan in some ways is a poster child in a way for the Jedi, at least of that era, and how he has to live up to that or deal with that. This is similar, but on a bigger scale. And what I love, this book examined the stress and pressures of kind of being at the head of the pack, going beyond that, because the people are making jokes, Stellan robes, and he loves talking. Yeah, he's always got a lesson in the story. But beyond that is someone who really wants to keep the order strong, who really believes in the Republic. He is the center. And which also means, kind of like you were saying, like he might be the guy you go to in a hotel lobby bar to talk about things. And he cherishes that role and he's good at that role, but there's stress behind that. And I just love the skills he has and the experience he's gone through have earned him this spot. And no one really takes that away from him, even if they kind of poke at him every now and then. And I love that in the book.
Yeah, I think Stellan was just like a revelation to me. He was one of my favorite things in this book because we got to kind of poke fun at the loud, traditional hero guy. I loved on page 53 when he is supposed to be giving a demonstration for the cameras, but he'll just launch into talking about the different lightsaber forms, which is just a great in-joke too of their going in and out of canon of how much do we know about lightsaber forms or not. We get him just explicitly Jedi-splaining, slightly talking over people. So there's a real criticism of like, you got to be careful when you have a lot of power that you're not being the loudest person in the room, that you're not talking over people, that you're not, being a jerk. And the book kind of invites like that. Ooh, is that what we're doing? Are we going behind the mask of the typical hero? And then I really love that we do, and we learn that he's definitely got some ego. He's definitely got some hubris, but I love that passage where we learn that what he really likes to do is teach. He wants to pass on. He wants to share. He's talking so much because he wants to give back, and he doesn't want to be the poster boy. He doesn't want to be in the spotlight. It's just what is being asked of him is a great way to make a complex character. And you get to see all of the doubt and the fear and the commitment to the principles of the Jedi. You get to see his hubris. I think we'll talk more about this, bite him in the ass when he's fighting. And then we get this kind of great twist where he's just like, I just want to be a Jedi. I want to be a teacher. I want to defend, and I want to pass on what I know. And Lina So is like, but you're so strong, and you're so valiant, and you're so open with your emotions. Everybody saw you cry while holding me. You got to be the poster boy. In this tragedy of like, I don't want to be what everybody thinks I am.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was a powerful moment. I loved the use of him because again, this I wouldn't think Cavan Scott or any writer in the High Republic would undercut these characters, but you could have gone. He could have just been a pompous, blowhard Jedi. He could have been the star quarterback on the team who takes all the credit. And there's some great quotes from him or around him that I thought applied to other areas of conversation about unity. But he says, he's the one that says to Bell, no Jedi is ever alone. We are united in the Force, which shows a lot of things and connects, I think, even to episode 9. But it shows Stellan has an understanding of where he is in all of this and where he is in the big picture. And his old master speaking to him, right? And you get some of those great moments where he's remembering or connecting to those memories. A Jedi is never beyond duty. A Jedi must always feel pain of those who are oppressed. The pain of the powerless brings up bigger conversations about Star Wars and Jedi. But for him, too, just that sense of purpose, that sense of what he's going to do, it just shows his strength of character.
Yeah. He is a good guy ultimately, and kind of has this a little bit of the ego and a little bit of the burden of being a poster boy. And that's just fascinating stuff for me. I did want to ask you, if you were a Jedi, would you struggle to remain connected?
I would. I'd be Elzar, man. I think it'd be very tough. This is why I love with the High Republic era, but I also love what the modern Star Wars era has done to really analyze the Jedi and not just even the prequel era, going back to what George put there. and saying, yeah, they fell. And a lot of it was from the inside. Let's really analyze why, because we have a little more time. And Clone Wars was doing that as well, by the way, setting that up. But I love this stuff. And so I don't know, man. That kiss on page 195. This is a great Star Wars kiss, man. There's been some great ones on shows and movies and comic books, but it was a well-written moment. And I was kind of rooting for him. And I woke up like Elzar Man the next morning going, yeah, that's probably not good though.
There's a couple good Elzar Man moments. You're like, yeah, great job. Wait, no.
Yeah. Oh no, we're not supposed to do that. Oh, that's right.
Yeah. No, that kissing as the fireworks go off was like, yep, yeah, okay.
Yeah. They were otherwise occupied. Oh, great.
Felt you, Elzar, but yes, also you could feel the tragedy. Yeah, no, I mean, I think what's so great about the story of the Jedi and the story of the Jedi in this book is it's just it can be, if you want it, a study of ourselves. Of it's easy to say, oh, we're all in this together, unity. Let's all be connected. It's so frightening to open yourself up, and I think that's something that we all struggle with. And particularly if I were a Jedi, I would really be like, you're right, that's a problem, I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And you should maybe ask for help. I'd also be bad at meditation. I would tell people I'll meditate tomorrow. I would probably make jokes on the whatever the social media version of the Hollow is about, like, oh no, I totally meditated today. Yeah, no, absolutely, I'm totally calm, I'm peace, I'm not doing 7 things at the same time. I meditate all the time.
I'm right there with you. This is why I don't do audiobooks. Going to the Dooku at Jedi Lost, Cavan Scott as well, right? Where I would go listen to it every day and then come back and not remember most of what I heard because my mind just suddenly just 12 other spots. So
yes,
I get that too.
Focus, control. We must learn focus and control. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of the damages, the dangers of loss of connection, but this book also, I think, just really celebrates these moments of success when there is connection. There were so many moments of successful connection. A great action moment of Porter Engle jumping on top of the Vector and bringing them together and reminding these Jedi of, like, we do this. Let's come together. Let's be adrift. Ty and Elzar locking hands and souls to tame Sandval beasts and knowingly opening themselves up to that terrifying intimacy. Learning that the voice of Marie Santeca, who is also in captivity, has been reaching out to Loden in his captivity. The kind of big picture story of Lena So taking this big swing of inviting the Togrutas, who are not happy, we learn, with the Republic, and inviting them to come to my cool fair about unity. Oh, whoops, sorry. Almost got you killed. And everybody's like, yeah, that's probably it for the relationship with the Togrutas. But what do you know? The risk that Lena So took and the display of who she truly is forged the possibility of an alliance with the Togruta. So that was another moment of great connection. Stellan talking to all the Jedi once the communications were reconnected into pushing the fog away together. What a great image of now that we're together, let's push the fog of isolation away so we can truly see what's going on together. Which of these triumphs were most impactful for you? Either ones I've listed or other ones, because there's so many.
There's so many, and along the way, and they're all just thread so nicely through it. Porter Engle is one of my favorite characters of this era. Mostly based on his ability to cook soup, but I love that moment too. But the Ty and Elzar one was great because it's so just a crazy Star Wars Jedi taming beasts in a battle, right? It's just pew, pew, pew and zoom, zoom, zoom Star Wars stuff. But really it's about intimacy. And in this case, not a romantic intimacy, but just the bravery it takes to connect. Going back to what we're talking about, Elzar Man, it's no easy feat to be vulnerable. It's no easy feat to ask for help. It's no easy feat to admit some of these things. And I think in that moment, both of them kind of dance with, oh, too far. Oh, you knew that. You know that. And how it ends up working out, it really works for me. And I love, and you said it very well, Lena So, taking that risk in this cheesy song parade infested event. These posters, taking this risk with the Togruta and then having it pay off because probably they felt the we are all the Republic spirit in you. They felt it, whether they did at the beginning or not. They felt it, and that's why they responded. Reminds me, not unlike Chewbacca looking at Solo on Kessel and going, "Look at what that guy's doing. Look at what I feel it, and I'm going to reward that with my loyalty and my support and my help in this moment." It makes sense. It tracks for a Star Wars theme.
Yeah, it's really powerful because it is, I think, connecting back to what we were talking about early in the podcast about Lena So showed the Togruta. Oh man, there's so many names, and I even wrote it down. Anyway, shows the Togruta leader that this is not a poster. This isn't BS. This is really who I am. I'm helping other people. I'm Elric Jovit. She shows her the true philosophy, not the poster. And I think that makes a difference. Yeah, I love Ty and Elzar in particular because it is this. Look, our backs are up against the wall. We might die. Elzar really needs to make amends and help and save people and defend people. And I like that they're both damaged, so they're coming at this point of like, all right, we can save ourselves and others if we show one another our scars. It's not even like a mystery box of what are we going to see. They're both like, I'll show you my scars if you'll show me yours. It's such an exchange of we're going to show each other our pain in order to move forward.
Yeah.
I love it's a little thing. It's early on. I love Stellan is using the Force to protect Lena So in the group from the gas closing in, and they are just literally chanting for light and life and turning what could be just a little catchphrase into something that's giving them strength in the moment.
Totally.
I really loved Bell catching Loden toward the end. That was just such a great moment of good Star Wars poetry where we meet Loden and Bell, where at least partially where Loden keeps teaching Bell different ways to fall and catch himself. So Bell catching Loden was a great moment of triumph of connection. So there's a big look at this theme of unity versus lost connection. We're going long as I thought we probably would, so we'll stay with us if you'd like to. We're going to look at a couple other themes. I want to look at this theme of Jedi weaknesses, right? In particular, there is this great passage that I'm sure you wrote down as well, because we were writing down all the same passages, that the Jedi, we know, they strive to defend, not attack. They give people second chances. This is Indira Stokes' thoughts. She says, Jedi were taught to see the best in people from an early age. Friend or enemy, all were to be respected. The belief ran deep. There was good in the darkest of hearts. Such conviction marked the Jedi out from other Force users. They're always ready to give someone a second chance. They're always ready to try again. To do otherwise would have been a betrayal of everything the Order stood for. Unfortunately, the Jedi occupied a universe that didn't share the sentiment, a universe that constantly tried to prove otherwise. The Jedi's greatest strength was also their weakness, the gap in their armor. I thought that was just a great passage to just really fully acknowledge that. And then it really brought into focus for me that during this whole battle, we were seeing different Jedi process and handle the fact that they needed to kill Nihil to protect other people well, and others not so well. And I think that we saw some Jedi really face consequences from holding back in battle. I wanted to ask you about that in particular. Did you feel that? Were you pumping your fist for the Jedi who were able to say, I don't want to be doing this, but I understand I have to, versus the Jedi who kept giving vicious Nihil members second chances?
Yeah, and I did. This is page 304, and I didn't write the full speech down, but yeah, there's the difference between Jedi and Force users. This idea of redemption, always willing to give someone a second chance. It's pretty big, pretty powerful statement as we dig into the Jedi. Yeah, this is fascinating stuff. I go back, I'll tell you what, I found myself, this is going back to the question of what would I do? Would I maintain connections? And would I be a good Jedi, basically is what you're asking me, Joseph. Elzar goes a bit dark here at times, and I struggle with just press the trigger, take them out. They've made their choice. They've got a Nihil mask on and the 3 lightning bolts. Take them out. And then maybe you wake up the next day and go, that's not right. And what stood out to me going back to page 84 is this idea of the deaths of for the Jedi, the deaths of those they kill stay with them. They stay with the Jedi. And that every Jedi who took life, no matter how justified, that every silenced voice would stay with them until the end of their days. It's frighteningly haunting in one way, but powerful in another. And it gives me pause to figure out the best way to fight in these situations. I think that Jedi do a pretty good job getting their vectors and getting into action when they need to. The fact that each kill, each fire of the lasers brings this great dilemma for the Jedi, and that's part of the burden of the Jedi and part of this never losing sight of duty and always being on duty in a way for those who are oppressed and those in pain. It all rolls into one and all in a cool little battle. Well, big
Yeah. A cool big battle. Yeah, this is what I was saying when I think this book really fulfills the promise of this idea of we get to see the fantasy and philosophy of the Jedi just turn to 11. And it was so great to hear all of Indira's ability to cope and frame it in the middle of chaos and death. Page 238, I think she says every death was a failure. And then she takes out a Nihil ship. And then she says she looked for another regret to add to her tally. So she's so clear on it. Her philosophy is so solid that she can move forward and defend and do what she needs to do. And then when I was reading Stellan fighting that Trandoshan Nihil, I got viscerally upset with Stellan.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was this great picture of like Stellan's, he wants to be the teacher. You know, he knows the lightsaber forms and he can demonstrate them. There's even that little hint where like maybe he didn't actually win that fight with Nib Assek, which is just like, I'm letting you show how it's done, but that's not really how it's done. You're showing classroom lightsaber stuff.
Yeah.
And then when he's out there trying to fight the Trandoshan like it's a classroom or like it's a nice little match that they both agreed to and signed up for, he's not fighting the battle that is then, right? It's admirable that he's trying to give that Trandoshan a second chance. But in doing that and getting his ass handed to him by the Trandoshan, he gets Noril Quo viciously hurt and almost drops Lina So off the walker, right? Like there are immediate consequences to him not having the same clarity that Indira does.
Yeah. And by the way, Indira Stokes, hell of a Jedi, by the way.
She's really the MVP of like Jedi who have their stuff together.
I would absolutely say so. And a lot of the action that are just in passing are like, ooh, that's great. It's usually her and a Vector. She's great character.
Yeah, absolutely. Were you there with me? Were you viscerally upset by Stellan of being like, it's so admirable that Trandoshan's not going to take the offer for a second chance. That's not the fight you're in. Yeah.
No, it feeds into some I guess frustration, but I love the discussion on the right way to do it. But I think it's clear, right? And that's again, I don't know if that's even I'm saying that's the right perspective, but for Stella, that moment, for a lot of these characters, it's clear what you have to do. This to me is part of your duty. This stops or helps stop some of the oppression and pain in the galaxy. Do it. Now's not the time. But again, I'm probably a Jedi that's going to go sneak off and have a drink and a kiss.
Speaking of Jedis who sneak off and have a drink and a kiss, let's talk about under the general category of Jedi weakness, Elzar's big moment of darkness. How did you feel about that? He reaches into his feelings, and this big Nihil ship is going to destroy Indira and Porter and a bunch of our Jedi in their drift, and he throws one of the islands of the fair at the Nihil. In a movie, you could see it as a big applause moment, but we get to see inside Elzar, and we get to see that he's really reaching into all of his pain and frustration to make that possible. Mm-hmm. Did you enjoy that moment? Do you have hopes that he's going to make amends like he wants to? What were your thoughts there?
Yeah, I believe he will. And maybe whether it's in the next book or comic book or whatever, I think he will. I think that's part of his story. I just hope he doesn't have to go out in death to make amends. I want him to maybe retires and settles down. Elzar. No, it's a great moment, and I'm glad that you highlighted that on screen. Not that Star Wars movies don't, by the way, but often on screen it's simple. It's a cool set piece. It's a cool action moment. It's Mecha Elzar. He's pressing L1 and R1, and his force powers are the best. And isn't that cool? And it is. This is spectacular to read. It'd be spectacular to see. I love what you're describing because, again, it sounds like I'm just making a joke or repeating a beat. But I'm like, yeah. And then you turn the page and you're like, oh, I get it. And you and I grew up in a decade, not just with Star Wars fans, but it was like 80s, man. G.I. Joe, boom, boom, Rambo, everything, and all fun and games until people get hurt. To go back and analyze what it means and to take a little moment. And this, again, great use of the medium. Now you're inside Elzar's mind and body and soul to feel the weight of that moment.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you had the same experience because as you're reading it, you know, I'm so afraid for the Jedi who are being chased by that giant Nihil ship, and so wanting Elzar to go out there and make a difference. And the way that's written of like, I'm going to tap into all of these feelings of anger and frustration and doubt, and I'm just going to deal with the problem, and I'm going to make things better. And for a moment, it sounds like, yeah, that's great. And then you flip the page, and I believe it's Indira once again, but I'm like, ooh, someone just did a real dark side thing, and they're going to have to deal with that. And Indira shook me out of like, oh, right. I'm a big Star Wars fan. I know that Elzar just did the Anakin. He just did the, I know I'm going to reach into these feelings of anger and frustration and do an awful thing, but don't worry, it's for a good reason. And when I'm done lashing out in pain and anger, everything will be better. And it got me into that moment so well that I wanted it to be a fist pumping, cheering moment. And then as soon as I turned the page, Indira was like, Scrimshaw, go back and read that other chapter.
Well, so this is where, you just invoked the name of Anakin. Once you start on the dark side, forever will dominate your destiny, right? I mean, you and I have been breaking down a lot of the Clone Wars moments on the Clone Wars reports. How many times does Anakin do that? How many times does it work out pretty darn good? It just fuels his conviction that he's doing the right thing. And often it does produce good things like saving of lives of popular characters for us, but friends for him. He never stops to analyze it, never feels that pain. At least my hope, buddy, is Elzar's doing that. He at least knows. Oh, that wasn't good.
Yeah, that's what made this so fresh. It was such a great, like, some of these ideas of Star Wars are evergreen. They're philosophies that characters are going to wrestle with in any Star Wars story. And it was powerful that he was, unlike Anakin or other characters who have become dark side characters, that he was just immediately like, no, that was wrong, and I need to make it right. I need to make it right. That was really, really powerful. And I also just did like the big picture ongoing question of, okay, well, he did save people, but he slaughtered a lot of Nile, and maybe some other innocents died, and that he threw it into the lake, I believe, but it's a massive, big attack. And there is that question of, in Star Wars, obviously, that, the why and the how matters, right?
Yeah.
And what I like about it is Elzar was using these dark emotions to do this thing that did save people, but the why and the how matters. He's using those dark emotions. He's lashing out in anger and pain. You get that idea that, well, maybe a centered Jedi could have still done something as big and as cool, but from a different place.
Yeah, from a different place, not drawing on the power that Elzar did. Yeah.
Yeah. Last thing I want to talk about under Jedi Weaknesses is, all these things that Ro has up his sleeve. It looks like the Nile are going to get a hold of this nullifier that turns off energy weapons. That's obviously a problem. But the big thing of this book was the Leveler. The Leveler appears to be an organic beast, an ancient nightmare thing. What do you actually think it's doing to Force users? And did you like the Leveler?
Yeah, I did. And this is one of those, it's good to kind of go back and read some chapters again. I reread the discovery of it with Udi Dis. Is that how you say the name? Udi Dis?
That's how I said it when I read it to myself.
Then you'll get an audiobook and it will correct you. Udi Dis, it's great. And the second reading of that really drove it home for me. It's what happens to him as a Force user, not a Jedi, but a Force user. And to me, and Ro kept saying with his cousin who he kills, balance. It'll bring balance, and we love balance in Star Wars. But to me, with Udi Dis, it was almost just erasing him. It was erasing him from the Force, erasing the connection to the living Force, just sucking every fiber of his being away from him, and the pain and the memories were all that was kind of there, and those were just destroying him as much. His own relationship with his father, and him getting. A lot of people getting kicked out of nests on the Nile. And so to go back and apply that to maybe what was going on with Loden in the end, with what happens with him, that's the only way I could describe it to myself.
Yeah. That makes a ton of sense. I really loved that the Leveler ended up being this organic beast. A couple passages of it bounded from its cage, claws clattering on deck plates, breath ragged and guttural. He could hear it now. Ro could hear it growling, bestial, insatiable. And when Bell was under its effect, describes it as it was uncontrollable, a horror beyond name or understanding, and it was hungry, so very, very hungry. That's all very like Lovecraftian, cosmic horror. Part of what is frightening about it is you can't quite understand fully what it is.
Yeah.
So I really liked bringing that sort of element, that flavor into Star Wars. And for what's actually going on, it seems to me that it's just like that the leveler is maybe what in the coming of the leveler is what Elzar connected to at the end of Light of the Jedi. We got to hear it from Udi Dis's perspective. We got to hear it from Bell, that there seems to be this effect of just removing all hope, right? Removing all connection and leaving you with nothing but your fear and your anxiety, and none of that will to sort of get up and fight and make a difference, but just nothing but fear and lack of connection.
Yeah, it's interesting because we in a lot of the lead up to the release of these books, we heard like the writing team wanted what challenges the Jedi, what and fear comes up, right? And we know what Skywalker tells Rey in 9, but you're describing this just the big fear is this removal, you said connection, but also removal of hope, which fuels so much and feels so much in Star Wars. That's a Lena So poster way to describe it to myself.
Yeah, and I was really I had expected Loden to die there in those last moments, and was turning the pages, waiting for it. Sadly, I did not expect the being turned to stone and face crumbling.
No,
As a great visceral image. What does that mean to you? How does that connect to the other things that the leveler is doing? That the leveler appeared to have turned him to stone.
how does it connect to it? I mean, we talk about fear. Disturbing. If you want to connect to the idea of removing hope, that to me, movement of hope and the installing fear in its place can really harden your heart in a way. So I'm going to go with not that Loden had his heart hardened at the end, but just this visual representation of that, of this loss of hope.
Yeah.
Inanimate, you become, you're not living literally, you are something that we associate with not being alive.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's just kind of a great manifestation of that feeling of fear tightening you, holding you back, cold, disconnected, stone. There's something that's very visceral about it, that is really powerful and makes me think of if the leveler would work on Geode.
Oh, Geode. We got Geode's going to be our hero. He's gonna save the day.
Yeah, exactly. One other quick theme. I did also feel like this was continuing an idea that has been popping up a lot in the High Republic, of this feeling of specters of the past that you can't escape. Many of the Jedi are haunted by past mistakes or lost masters. These weapons that Ro is compiling are ancient horrors, because he's getting these two pieces of this rod put together that then directs the leveler. Ro is literally hearing his dead father's voice. The Drenjar are an ancient horror reborn. There's a lot of this specters of the past feeling. Is that still working for you? Do you like the idea of horrors of the past? Is that still an effective idea to you?
Yeah, it connects on a personal level. We all have to deal with our own, horrors of the past, big and small, in our own lives, and we love those kind of connections. It works in terms of Star Wars and just in terms of lore. This is, we're getting 200 years prior to anything we previously had known in canon, Old Republic stuff in the past and legends aside. So we're getting this. And so I love that even we're back 200 years and even there's even older things we got to deal with. And that cycle never really ends. And it also just on a plot level, on a lore level, it makes me just think of like, we're kind of in Wild West times here, even though some freeways have been built in this galaxy. What was it like then? And it makes me a little thirsty for more of those stories.
Yeah, I think it remains really effective to me because it is that multi-level feeling of anything bad that once happened could happen again. You don't entirely understand it because it's really old, so it's that fear of the unknown. And more than anything, that fear that you said, it's that fear that's in your mind, a fear that you can't escape. The past is always there in your mind, and you can't outrun it. So I think this feeling of specters of the past is really, really successful on giving it a sense of doom and challenging the Jedi. Any other big picture ideas or themes that you wanted to discuss before we take a quick break?
Yeah, just one, the big final one that I very much think this is what Cavan Scott was trying to tell us all. Don't go to parades or fairs. That might be mine. Okay.
I think so. I think this entire book is an attack on the Minnesota State Fair from my home state. Don't enjoy the all-you-can-drink milk. It's not real unity.
No bricks of French fries at your fair.
No, you don't need those cheese curds. Stay home. Stay angry. Last thing for me, I'll make this real quick, is I think there's a nice, really little thread of everyone is equal, right? There's those moments where Belle is getting strength from just the citizens at the fair and like, look, these people are still fighting. I'm a Jedi. I should really fight. They're inspiring me. The great moments of Lena and the Togruta leader, Yovette rescuing people, right? Like, just because they're the leaders of the people, they're not, beneath rescuing or not above rescuing people, right? There's a lot of just, hey, everyone matters moments, which is really powerful and good.
Yeah.
Excellent. With that, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back to finish our deep dive discussion of The Rising Storm.
Hey, ForceCenter friends, make sure you're keeping up to date on all the great content from Jennifer Landa. Whether it's YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok, you whippersnappers, ForceCenter's own Jennifer Landa continues to bring you fun, informative, and insightful laughs and moments.
Also, Jennifer brings her experience and perspective as a Star Wars-loving mother to her DIY projects, blogs, and more, so be sure to head on over to jennylanda.com, that's JENILANDA.com, for articles like how to make your own Darth Maul sneakers or 10 unique Star Wars baby gift ideas.
Follow Jen on Twitter and Instagram at Jennifer Landa, and on TikTok as Jennifer Landa 1138.
And we are back to finish our big discussion of The Rising Storm by Cavan Scott. We talked a lot about some of the really big picture ideas. Now we're going to dive into some of the moments we enjoyed, some action moments, some fun canon lore connection as we wrap up our discussion. So, Ken, what are some moments that you particularly enjoyed because they're fun or insightful or for whatever reason? What were some moments for you?
Some moments indeed. I enjoyed. There's the I don't want to put it just in the action moment, but just there's some real great. A lot. I've heard horror described around this book a lot. Just people, even some of the people have read it already and are tweeting out things, which by the way, don't do. The Bell rescuing like Kip and John and just there's a bit of a Titanic kind of boat sinking atmosphere. Just that was worked for me. A lot of just I make fun of the fair, but just the lead up to it, and a lot of stuff with the So and Tune stuff really jumped out to me as well. But then the fights begin. Then I have a lot more action moments and little moments there, and a lot of little characters along the way. The fun nature of this, of the kind of different kind of species that we've never heard before or haven't heard about in a long time. I mean, Ribbits showing up again and Star Wars. And that's a deep cut thing, right? So I love a lot of that stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. If you enjoy memorizing Star Wars speeches or Googling them, man, it's a great book for that.
Yes.
In a wonderful way. There are many moments of just sort of comedy and humanity amidst the horror that I really appreciated. There's one passage where the opera singer, the Mon Calamari opera singer that Lena So is on the run with during the tragedy, is at first kind of not getting involved and being a little selfish. And I like that it's eventually this moment where she gets involved and is using her operatic voice to yell, "Move!" It's like a great moment of humanity and comedy, which I think, given that this is the tragedy movie book of Star Wars, that there's still those moments of comedy and humanity. I love that moment where everybody is just surveying the horrific destruction and then notice that damn Unity song is still playing.
Still play it.
That was a great moment. I loved on page 309 when Stellan's trying to connect with people and bring the Jedi together, and Porter Engle, this is the passage. Porter Engle grunted, the sound of his lightsaber buzzing over the connection. Was the Ikruki in the middle of a fight? It's such a great, funny picture of him. Like, yeah, no, I'm having a conversation and I got a thing going on at the side too. Yeah. No big deal.
Yeah.
A couple other moments for me. I think the jokes that are in the book about Elzar Mann's sex and sexuality are good. I like on page 203 the many layers the Jedi Order insisted its members wear for very good reason.
Yeah,
the idea of like, look, we're all about connection. We're all about being loose and free and letting things go. But we got some layers in our robes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was funny and insightful and good in Elzar Mann's head. You highlighted this one I wanted to take a quick look at it. Page 53, Stellan is talking about Jedi interests to the journalist Reel.
Yeah.
And says that it would be foolish to suggest that a Jedi has no desires or interests. In fact, I would go so far as to say it would be dangerous, leading only to complacency. I love that he is talking about the fact that he's real interested in lightsaber history.
Yes.
Like, it's really like, yeah, like, no, Jedi can collect stamps.
Yeah.
They're not boring people who don't have interests, but it's also a powerful passage to me because I'm always interested in what moments in the High Republic storytelling are going to shed light on how the Jedi maybe made little mistakes along the way by the time we get to the prequel era. And I think that idea of complacency will come if you're not allowing yourself to be individuals and finding joy in humanity.
That was a powerful moment. Absolutely. A prequel warning signs. That's an interesting subsection discussing these books.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Last little favorite moment that I wanted to highlight is I really loved when the journalist Reel had reconnected and was being asked to talk over the footage, and the anchor on the other side was asking those very anchor-like questions of like, okay, well, I see this species of Jedi and this species of Jedi. What are their names? And she's thinking like, what does it matter? And she says in her mind, the important thing was that they, the Jedi, were there trying to hold back the horror.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciated that. That was a real kind of like justice for the Jedi moment of like, well, maybe the fair was a risk. Maybe Toon has some accuracy that the Jedi there weren't able to save everybody. But this is such a big idea of the Jedi of just like, if one Jedi saved one person in that tragedy, it's still worth it. They're still trying to hold back the horror. And having this journalist who went through it see that and appreciate that was a real justice for the Jedi moment for me.
I love that. That's great. Yeah, that whole sequence was kind of funny because it's very real world. I felt like I was here in Burbank. Producers and anchors and now Reel, is that a fire I see next to the freeway? A lot of that going on there. It was funny in a way, but that's a real powerful moment. One I forgot about, actually, I just brought. Don't put notes in two places, kids, if you're talking about Star Wars books. I want to go if it's okay with you, Joseph, to page 93.
Please do.
This idea of Ember the Charhound. We love Ember the Charhound. I love dogs.
Yeah,
I'd love a Charhound. I have kind of close to that with a male Chihuahua that loves to bite my ankles every now and then. But the purpose of Ember and Bell's Bell, who's trying to dealing with what he thinks is the death of Loden Greatstorm, then we'll be dealing with that. But also this connection and trying to lock himself off in the Force. But attachment is such a big Star Wars thing and word and theme we dive into, and what's good and what's bad. This idea of Ember, to me, showing the purpose of connection. We're not going to attachment, the purpose of connection. And while Bell is dying basically and trying to recover, all these things going on, it's Ember, his anchor, good dog. That's one of my favorite 3 sentences in Star Wars ever. Ember is his anchor. It's his connection, and it's not attachment, but that connection is in this moment. It's keeping him alive and shows a little bit of the purpose and value of connection, and why that's as we deal with that with this book here, this big theme. Just was a real small, very real world boy and his dog. It worked for me and stood out.
Yeah, that was great. And so many great moments of Ember clearly being able to really communicate with, truly understand Bell and really work with him, and Bell being able to be like, no, Ember, I need you to help these other people. I'm going to send you that way. And, just always being there and defending Bell. That great passage at the end that he was watching over poor Bell, when he was collapsed from his vision and flames dancing around his teeth. So great.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you took a moment to shout out Ember because that Charhound deserves it.
Yeah.
Any other moments for you, or shall we move on?
We can move on. One final thing. A couple Elzar moments. Elzar and his hubris, just this idea that the Jedi aren't just enough for themselves. It's kind of him thinking just me. Hey, I'm Elzar. I'm here to save the day. More to dig into in other books and stuff. But all that to say, and he goes through his great act, which has consequences. At the end of the book, there is this idea put across that the Force does not desert Elzar. No matter what he had done. Reminds me a little bit of the Last Jedi prologue, where the Force is trying to like, all right, Luke, you may have shut yourself off, but we're going to find you because we're not leaving you. We're here. And I just love that kind of view of the Force and talking about Elzar as he goes forward and hopefully some redemption, hopefully some amends. It was pretty powerful for me just to have that moment to realize the Force isn't done with you.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And Elzar really having to maybe being taken to a place there at the end where he's going to find some connection because now Bell is going to understand what he went through, right?
Yeah.
So hope for Elzar there. Let's dive into some action moments where I'm sure we'll be talking a little bit more about Elzar as well. What action moments did you particularly enjoy? Because, we talked about the philosophy, and not that there isn't philosophy in the fantasy, but there's just like a ton of amazing fist-pumping Jedi action in this as well.
Yeah, I have the Porter Engle, you mentioned it before, but Portal Engle, riding a Vector. Reminiscent of Mace in the Clone Wars, the first Clone Wars series, right? Just taking over a droid. The idea, oh God, I just moved. It's Indira when she sees Elzar and Ty riding a dragon in the battle. Just the great line of just like, here it is. Elzar man was riding a dragon into the middle of a dogfight because who else would be? Love that there. That one there. Lena So driving the walkers one stood out. But also, anytime Ty York is fighting, and I took it and dropped the G. Ty York fighting. It's she's really good, really interesting character.
Yeah, that was a great action moment. Honestly, on the way to the big fair attack, where the nullifier is being tested, and her lightsaber goes out just as she's about to stab Elzar, but she does still stab him with the sharp points of her hilt. Is a great moment. So a couple for me. The Porter Engle one, I think in the way that's like the first kind of spark of hope in the battle of like, no, let's pull ourselves out of it. Let's get together. And I love the fact that he doesn't just jump on the ship, right? He leaps out of his own ship, sends it as basically an explosive device into another ship, then lands on Adira's ship, then starts just sort of broadcasting his mind to everybody to try to bring them together. And we get that great callback to his chef days where Indira is just like, I see eggs. I guess I'm connected to Porter.
Egg stew, yes.
Yeah, great action moment of like, you old badass being the one to bring a little bit of hope back into the battle. Real fist pumping for me. Absolutely, Elzar man riding a dragon. We've heard that Elzar is the one who does things differently. It's great to see him do something differently. And the throwing a lightsaber through the Nile ship and Ty even going like, you're going to show me how to do that one. Just cool, right?
Yeah.
I think I really like the moment where Stellan used his master's blade to kill the Trandoshan. That was he went through so much with getting pummeled by that Trandoshan, getting other people in trouble, and there's a little bit of the Force finds a way. He's been carrying his master's blade around, and it serves a purpose.
Yeah,
I like that a ton. But Ken, perhaps my favorite action scene. It's hard for me to even put into words how much I love this one. The Jedi archivist Orbelin. Lecturing and fighting at the same time. Just that big picture, how well it was set up that Orbelin kept coming along. First, he's just odd. He's mucus in a human suit, and people are like, "Oh, okay, Orbelin is going to talk our ear off," and it's a funny joke about a fair. But then I just thought it was like this great evolution of what was established in Light of the Jedi, that all the Jedi see the Force differently. It's a song, it's an ocean, it's a fire, and I have a background as a history person. So does my wife. When we met, we were both working for the Minnesota Historical Society. So I kind of have a soft spot for historians who get so excited about old things and want to tell other people about them, and be a tour guide at all moments. And this idea that maybe the way that Orbelin connects to the Force is it's not a song or an ocean. It's a history lecture. It's how he sees the Force. And then he can stay focused by lecturing the people who he's trying to absolutely just kick their asses. He can stay focused by lecturing. And then when it comes together with this great... Nobody pays attention to the Tithonian mastery tokens. Nobody thinks they're interesting. Nobody thinks they're valuable because the metal isn't valuable now, but it was back then because it's so heavy. and then throwing it through the Niles' heads was like this beautiful, beautiful moment of all the cool threads of Oberlin coming together in a cool, badass action moment. I just loved it.
I love it was great sequence, very memorable. When he comes out of his suit, Oberlin is an Ugor, right?
Yeah.
So I was looking that up also too on Wikipedia. Distinctions, blob-like. Indeed, a lot of legend stuff with Ugors as well. This is not something tremendously new, but in canon, one was in Solo Star Wars story there. On the spaceport. So I love the use of that. I love when you go into the kind of the far reaches or seldom used parts of Star Wars and pull these characters in and create something so memorable that will stand out for a while.
Yeah. So I hope to see more of old Oberlin. Tons of action moments. We could go on and on, but do you have any more before we go on to our next topic?
No, there's one great. There's I almost think there's a couple times, but Bell force pushing the scav droids off the ship. There's a couple of moments of that, but it's just, again, great use of the medium when you force push, but to go into what it actually kind of means. It makes me think of Claudia Gray kind of writing what Qui-Gon reforming himself to be a Force Ghost felt like, and just kind of, I love that kind of insight from Star Wars writers.
Yeah, there are a lot of great moments with Bell. That moment where he does feel like he has earned being a Jedi Knight as he lifts up all the ship parts and stops the water and saves people. That was a great fist pumping moment too. And maybe he'll still feel that way after he's not curled up in a ball. Poor Bell.
Poor Bell.
So let's talk about canon lore moments. I did not write down every time something we know from Star Wars was mentioned. This was a dense book in events, but also just a dense book in terms of references and connections. So even with that caveat, the list is long. I'll go through some and see if there's some that we want to chat about. I like the reference to the Statues of the Lost in the Jedi Archives and the significance that Ty York is not in it. Did that one grab you? Are you intrigued by those Statues of the Lost?
I'm very intrigued. My pal, former ForceCenter guest Billy Patterson, we talk about those Lost 20 all the time. We want stories on Lost 20. So I love even just a mention of them. And important that Ty's not in that.
Yeah. I think it's been one of the just intriguing tip of the iceberg possibilities since Attack of the Clones. I'm sure it's been explored in some more EU stuff, but in terms of modern canon, kind of getting into that a little bit more, I would love that. And to know that it's been there for a while. In that prologue, we of course are going to Ashla with Elzar, the moon of Tython. Tython, of course, we have seen recently when Din Djarin went there and didn't understand anything about the Jedi whatsoever on the moon of Tython. So that's a nice, fun connection. A lot of little bits of information that is coming from other High Republic books or comic books in particular, like the Drengir infestation of Nal Hutta, and a little bit of a suggestion I thought of, like, well, Nal Hutta kind of looked different before the Drengir infested it.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that one?
It's an interesting story. The stuff with the Drengir, we know Avar's kind of off dealing with that, and what that begs more stories to be told. It just was the way it was even described of like this. We're dealing with the sphere and all this stuff, and then they're also like, yeah, also these plants are destroying worlds. I'm just like, go over there.
Yeah, and if you are interested in that thread, that's from the High. Right now, there's the High Republic comic, and then there's the High Republic Adventures. The High Republic comic is following adventures of Secure, the Trandoshan Jedi who lost his arm in Light of the Jedi, and Avar Kriss and the other character from there, King Trevis. Bunch of great Jedi, but it's really following through both adventures and clarifications with the Drengir, as well as Avar Kriss making this deal with the Hutts. I think if I'm all caught up on the comic books as of last night, I think this book is getting slightly ahead of where the comics are. So there's a little bit of fun hints of what is to come, because they keep talking about Avar being occupied on Maluta, and I think that's a story that we're going to be seeing in the comic books, is my understanding.
Yeah.
There's a mention of a Clone Wars favorite, Professor Hyang and the ship Crucible, where the Jedi put their lightsabers together. That was a thrill to hear because I love that arc in Clone Wars and that character. Were you happy for that one, Ken?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I love that. I wasn't as happy as I was for the next character, though.
This was a big one. One of the Jedi that we adore, one that I've really talk about a lot. Anytime, what Jedi would you like to? I'm like, this guy. He only features prominently in one episode of the Clone Wars, Lightsaber Lost. He's in the background of other episodes, but it is the one, the only, the great Tera Sinube, Mr. Lightsaber Kane himself, is featured in this, and they discuss him as being that young Jedi. He's a marshal on Dara. It was so great. I was just thrilled. I kept wondering. Because, you have different ages for different species. You don't know. I kept wondering if he was going to pop up. And if all it is just a tease, just the knowledge that young Tera Sinube is having adventures during the High Republic, I'll be satisfied. But if we could also get an entire spin-off series, The Adventures of Young Tera Sinube, I'd be thrilled.
Yeah, that's a comic book waiting to happen.
Well, did you have any sort of reaction or thoughts to Tera Sinube?
I mean, big reaction. I think we even communicated around this time. It was like, have you got to page 87? Yeah. No, love it.
Yeah, absolutely great. And I think it is really fun to just sort of connect all these dots from across all these different bits of storytelling. Some other stuff, obviously the first book dealt a lot with the advancement of this new Bacta technology and the importance of it being farmed. It's great then to see Bell in the Bacta tank, to have that story continued. There was a mention of a Jedi temple on Naboo and that Elzar served there. I'm just always hungry for more Naboo stories in different time periods. So a Jedi temple on Naboo just thrilled me to no end. How did you feel about that one?
Well, it works for Elzar because, you imagine him looking over what we know as Lake Como in the real world, just looking at, I mean, come on. Yeah. How many secret kisses has he had there?
Elzar. Yeah. How many times did he sun himself on the beach trying to guess the names of the birds singing, right?
Yeah. It's probably some, someone from the Naberi line. He probably wooed. I'm on to you, Elzar.
Yeah. In a very old relative of Apollo, maybe. Page 118 mentions tourists at the fair taking image scans. Image scans is what the people at Galaxy's Edge call photos. Sometimes subtly, sometimes not subtly. It's that great trying to keep you in universe when you will approach the actor playing Vimerati and like, can I take a photo of you? An image scan? Sure.
Love that.
That was a fun level of meta.
Yeah, the meta indeed. There's a lot of I mentioned like the news stuff with the news producer and anchor and HoloNet's news stuff. It's like there was a lot of kind of real world, like modern, not necessarily terminology, but you got a sense that this was Galaxy's Edge a couple of times, not Batu, but just a theme park and real world. Even Rec Punk, which has been introduced already prior to this, it's such a wonderful kind of real world thing that we're not used to in Star Wars sometimes, and I love the use of them.
Yeah, like Hoverball was another thing that got shouted out like that, which was great. And you mentioned this at the very top of the podcast. There was an exhibit called Secrets of the Jedi, which just is a book in the real world.
Yeah.
Certainly not the same thing because that's written by Luke, so that would be mind-blowing if they had the actual... Or Belinda's got some stories to tell, if that's true. But that was great. Great shout out. Clawfish Chowder mentioned. Don't know if it's Colo Clawfish, but I like to think so.
Yeah.
The Uneti tree is one of these threads in Star Wars that I really, really love. It pops up many different places, these sacred Jedi trees. Great stuff in Shattered Empire. Great stuff in The Last Jedi, in the Clone Wars. But Uneti blossoms, I believe, were on display. And I think Stellan mentions enjoying Uneti tea.
Yeah.
I love that idea. Like, there's a sacred tree and we interact with it, or trees, and we interact with them in lots of different ways.
Yeah. Of course, Stellan would have a Uneti tea. Come on.
Yeah, come on. He's so Jedi. He's all in. I'm sure he would like to lecture on the best way to make it, too. The character that Ty York encounters in the prison, Ram Jamaram, covered in grease, a Padawan covered in grease, will be the star of the book that came out the same day, Race to Crash Point Tower. So that will be great to see his adventures. There's a Frick staff, which is a metal that got mentioned a lot in Legends that has been sneaking back into canon. Sidious's hilts are made from Frick for his lightsabers. So that was great. A lot of characters from other books. Vern, Vernestra Rowe, obviously from one of the great middle reader books. Ken, why am I spacing on the title of that one?
Test of Courage.
Test of Courage.
Test of
Yes,
Courage.
yes. Lula, Taliosa, Zine, those are all characters from the High Republic Adventures comics. Just two more I wanted to touch on, Ken. The mention of a dead Gungan at the fair. I felt very sad for the Gungan, but I was thrilled by the canon implications of a Gungan out in space.
Yeah.
And is this a picture of, were they leaving the planet a lot because they're kind of keeping to themselves? It seems like in the Phantom Menace, or was this before the troubles on Naboo?
Yeah, maybe an off-world Gungan. That's a good thing. I like this idea, Gungan out and about in the galaxy. What a short story to experience. Except for this poor Gungan, not so much. I'd love to know a little bit more of the history. You and I just did the big Boss Nass Throne of Judgment episode, and just when did the relationships go sour? Was it for generations upon generations, or was this some recent development? Stay tuned.
Yeah. It is just one of those like, ooh, I don't know if there already is an answer for that, or if there's an answer planned, but it's just one of those little moments that makes you go, ooh, wow, there's even more to explore in this world we like. Final thing for me, I liked when Stellan was thinking like, okay, we're going to get through this. Then maybe Elzar and I are going to go to Jeddah, and we're really going to get centered. I was so thrilled by this because that's just kind of what I want the next book to be, is Elzar and Stellan go to Jeddah together. Did you respond to that one?
I absolutely did. It's like look into a close friend and go, do you want to go to Vegas this weekend? Yeah, let's go center ourselves. Maybe Vegas isn't the place, but it had a Elzar and Stellan's big day out type of vibe. And even though it's with great importance and spiritual need and desire and clarity needed behind all that, I'd love to see it as well.
Yeah, we've seen Jeddah under the boot of the Empire. We've seen Jeddah in ashes.
Yeah.
It would be great to see Jeddah at its prime.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's just some of the things. There's so many. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about, Ken?
Nothing that really is different here. Yeah, there's a lot. And I wouldn't expect any less. Cavan Scott is so good at taking and so soul. Any of these comic book writers in Star Wars, they have the ability to just kind of pull from so many places, and video games and comics and novels and shows and legends, and everything kind of starts flowing in. I was waiting to turn the corner and have like Jackson's great grandfather be there too as well. Hot damn, I bet Cavan would make that work too. But yeah, it's kind of fun. And then to look at, because I was just reading I was trying to catch up on Star Wars comics too, and one of the Hutts has kind of like he comes in and out of he's kind of losing a little senile, and he's talking about dealing with Lena So,
Oh yeah.
It was like, here we go. It's layered in.
Yeah. Oh, that was one other thing that I did want to touch on, because I think it is one of the things where you don't need to follow along, but you work for it and it's there. That the story in Daniel Jose Older's comic book, the High Republic Adventures, is really filling in some pieces of, in Light of the Jedi, there is the purple glowing thing that he already has, that he talks about his family having had for a long time, Markian Row. And then in that comic book, he is on the hunt for another artifact. And then the implication at the end of The Rising Storm is he put those two things together to become that staff that allows him to sort of direct the leveler.
Yes. Yeah. Which I love that about Rowe. It's almost like he's the Indiana Jones villain, just finding these ancient horrors and terrors and putting them together.
Yeah. Great stuff. And I think they're walking a pretty good line with the High Republic, where they're trying to make it accessible, where you could just read Light of the Jedi and The Rising Storm and you'd be fine.
Yeah.
But if you really want to dive deep and go, ooh, Yoda saw a purple thing in his comic, because that's the same purple thing for the book, like, you can get the reward of diving deep too.
Yeah. Oh, totally. It's you don't feel lost. I don't think you do.
No, not at all. All right. Ken, was there anything that you wrestled with, anything that didn't work for you on a subjective, personal taste level in this book?
Not necessarily. No, we talked already that there's a short, punchy chapters, which I enjoy more than a chapter, Alphabet Squadron stuff. Sometimes they're dense chapters broken up to 4 long parts. Alexander Freed's a great author. That's not a slight on him, but it's just, I enjoy the punchy version of this. It feels fast, feels moving, but there a lot of times I don't necessarily, for me, this is not you got to stay focused at times. In the big battle, there's a lot going on and a lot of characters and a lot of things bouncing back and forth. And So if you happen to be listening to this episode now and haven't even touched the book, make sure you clear a Sunday afternoon. Give yourself an hour. Don't have Netflix going. There's a lot going on. That's nothing that I had a problem with, just on a personal taste level. There's a couple moments where I was like, all right, let me go back. And I did get some clarity by rereading a chapter or two. And it's okay. And like, I'll learn a lesson from Elzar. It's okay to admit that.
Exactly. Yeah, I really loved this book. I don't have any sort of criticism of this book, but it was really interesting to see The Light of the Jedi and then The Rising Storm, that this is generally the goal of these books is to tell the story of the era, which means there's going to be, characters that you can have like a fun debate of who's the main character, who are the four mainish characters, but it's going to be a tale of an era, which means it's going to be borderline overwhelming with the amount of characters, the amount of information, the amount of different stories, individual stories you're following within the big story of this era. So I love this book, but there are definitely some moments that I felt like overwhelmed, sometimes in like a good way. Like emotionally, I'm supposed to be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But then honestly, just like I was disappearing into the book and then being like, okay, I found 8 notes that I feel I should write down. Right. And really feeling like that I want to finish this chapter so I can write them down. So it's not a criticism of the book. That's what the book is, and it does its job well. But reading it did make me hope for more stories within the High Republic that focus on just a handful of characters. And you can really feel like I've invested in these 3 characters. They're on this journey. I think A Test of Courage is really enjoyable because of that, because you're with those characters. And I think I just want a balance of these big, huge books that have just a ton of characters, a ton of stories to tell the one big story. And then I also want some smaller focused stories so we can really spend some quality time with all the amazing characters they're introducing us to.
Yeah, I'm really interested to check out Race to Crash Point Tower now. We were already going to check it out, but now going into that battle or going into this book and then focusing on a corner with Ram, that's really intriguing to me right now.
Yeah, and then that's a really cool pattern for these books, that the adult one is focusing on kind of a big main event, and then we get to see lots of people's approach and reaction to that event. All right. Do you have hopes for the future of these particular characters, this sort of big picture story of High Republic? What are your wants for what's next?
I touched on some of what I want. I think Lina Soh is such a fascinating character and in such an important position in the galaxy and in the story. And I hope, number one, she recovers and recovers well. And I hope that we see how she deals with the storm that's going to come after her now and Senator Toon, which is, I do think, could have been just a surface level kind of one-off political bad guy. There's some layers there that are intriguing and interesting, and whether or not it's him or not, just to carry out that thread. I know you agree, but we do love the politics of the galaxy being center stage in these books, and I really hope that we get more with Lina Soh.
Yeah. Does any part of you feel like Lina Soh is not going to make it? That her injuries are worse than we are being led to believe?
Yes. It's a little Battlestar Galactica to me in a good way.
Yeah, I think I got that feeling of that she is possibly aware that I've survived this tragedy long enough to set up what comes next, which would be a really interesting story for me. I'd be thrilled if she survived because she's a great character and a fascinating character, but I think it'd be a really interesting way to test this great vision, this great belief that she has in unity, and that she is sharp enough to know it's a beautiful philosophy, but in order to get everybody on board, I need to package it. And that she's aware of that. And I think that is a truth, in my opinion, that there are some difficult things that can be accomplished if the right charismatic leader is there. And that'd be a great story if Lena's like, I want my great works to continue, and I know I'm kind of this unique personality that can help make that happen. I need to set up the next person to take the baton to finish my great works. Would be an interesting story. Yeah.
Well said. I hope it's kind of what you're describing to me. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's almost a tragic but peaceful passing, maybe. And we've talked a lot about the real world kind of connections to the Kennedy era, and obviously we know what happens with JFK, not necessarily a direct one-to-one comparison, by the way. What happens to that era where that leader you're describing is removed, gone, done, and how does the society deal with it, and how does it change, and how does it force them to grow up, maybe not in all the best ways, and what is it, and who comes in after is scary or intriguing or just an interesting story. So there's something in that just kind of, I feel you're right. I don't know how long she's going to be around.
Yeah, and I also think that there is some. I think the Kennedy Camelot thing is spot on, but there's also this element of FDR that's being really evoked of his New Deal of coming out of tragic times of like, look, we need to pull ourselves together, and obviously that was a real life story of charisma. He's the reason that there are term limits for presidents. So if you're dealing with somebody who's like, I made big change that maybe people weren't sure if they were going to like, but it helped people. But some of it's being held together by the power of my charisma as leader is, that I'm really intrigued by.
That's a great and I think correct pull as well, and perhaps even a similar kind of parting in a way.
Yeah. Are there any specific characters' adventures that you're most interested in following coming off of, who are you going like, okay, but I want to know what happens next to X?
Yeah, and I don't think we've mentioned her much here, but I know she is going to get content coming her way. Lorna D is really interested in me on the Nile side. There's a lot there. Skilled fighter we've seen, a lot going on, how she's playing, the politics of the Nile. She's, I don't know, dare I say, the most level-headed of the Tempest runners we've met so far. And as we learn more of her story, this a Twi'lek in Star Wars is a tradition going back to Return of the Jedi. But it's just like, I'd love to, can't wait, I should say, because I know we are going to explore. And I think with good reason, because when they announced that project, which I believe is it an audio drama? I think so. Cavan Scott is doing. Okay, because we've only spent one book with her, and we don't spend a ton of time, I think, with the Nile. We do, but I think the focus is obviously on the Jedi. I'm like, yeah, I get it. There's something to this character. I want to know more about it. Even to the point where I thought this is not. I wouldn't say this is even a wild prediction, but I thought of all the Nile who might go good, I could see her doing it.
Right, because she is centered and thinking about what's best for her.
Yes.
Which is a kind of selfishness, but she's not just like this raw, angry domination that Pan-Etcha and we learned Ro is,
Yeah. And Ro's intriguing in a big bad villain way too, but there's something about her.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, the characters I'm most interested in following is I want Stellan and Elazar to go to Jeddah. I absolutely do want that to happen. I think the cliffhanger with Bell, Bell is such a vision of the future of the next generation. He's now going to go through this confirmed loss of Loden, this second different kind of grieving. And then he's been forced to feel this utter pain of whatever the leveler did to him, of feeling a total loss of hope. And the fact that I want Bell to come out of that, and his master is one of the Jedi that this book proves is the most centered of Indira. So I kind of want to see Indira take Bell on a journey of recovery.
Oh yeah, that'd be absolutely and Indira in the spotlight's, that's nothing but a good thing. And kind of the fact that Bell all through it is kind of not downplaying, but just like, I miss Loden. I mean, Indira is cool. It's just, I love to on that.
You kind of be like, Bell, really accept how awesome Indira is, because you got a great teacher there. And I would love to see her be one of the more main characters as she helps guide Bell on his next step.
Yeah, totally.
Do you think ultimately that the Jedi are going to find balance in their battle against the Nile? Are they going to struggle with it? Is this defending, or is this attacking? Are we giving in to our fear of them? How do you think the Jedi are going to handle that balance?
I think, yes, I think in the end, it's not that it's a matter that they're going to win, but I think the not that the Drengir, the bigger problem. I think this is a pretty giant problem, but I think they're going to look inside and figure it out, and maybe figure it out in a way that future generations of the Jedi should and maybe fail to figure it out. I think setting a template, not that it's not going to be problems, but I'd love to feel at the end of this, whatever the battle with the Nile is, that, hey, this is maybe how you're supposed to ask yourself these big questions, but still fight and still save the day and still protect.
Yeah. And I think on the way there for like next books, I'm really hoping to see some intriguing fracture in the order of some being like, no, it is what it is. These Nile are merciless. They've shown that again and again. And for us to defend the innocent, we got to go to them and take them out. I mean, they are going to the Nile and trying to, address the threat at the end of this book, but seeing even more of, are they going to give in to fear once they start to figure out they got this leveler thing? We don't even know exactly what it is, or maybe they do and they give in to the fear of the ancient. I think there'd be some great opportunities for really seeing. You see a hint of it in this book of fracture within the High Council, fracture within the Order of, how do we defend the galaxy without giving in to just attacking and fear?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm kind of hoping big picture for High Republic, that obviously they'll have a victory because Mark Yenro is not the leader of the galaxy in the Phantom Menace. If he could live that long, I'm hoping that they have a victory that leaves them with the scars that lead the Jedi to the rigidity and complacency that we see them having in the prequels.
Yeah, no, the prequel warning signs we were talking about earlier, the warning bell's going off. I think it's intriguing, it's fun, and it all kind of flows into one story there. Oh, and the one thing we do need finally Yoda to show up with some Bermuda shorts and a funny hat he got on a vacation, and have all the younglings behind him and him go, "How's it going?" And everyone's like, "Oh, where have you been?"
Oh, Yoda. Yeah, I like that moment of hope too in the book. It's like, is Yoda here too? Like, sorry, no.
And look, it's a good way to handle it. It's a big question, right? You can't. I like that he's not there yet, and we know he will eventually.
Yeah, and I mean, and he's in those High Republic Adventures comics.
Yes,
and being very Yoda, offering pastry snacks to the younglings and all that. And there's a hint in the most recent issue of where he's maybe going. Or that he's going, but it'll be great to see that story as well. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you wanted to touch on?
My own charhound is barking in the background. I apologize for hearing that. No, I really enjoyed this. I really love how you're saying these books are about the era. They really are about the era. And not that there's not lead characters and supporting characters and all in between, but really enjoying this era. Continues to be a big victory for what they're putting together, what they have put together.
Yeah, absolutely. My final thing about the book itself is just, continuing to enjoy this era. If you love the Jedi, wow, you just get everything you ever wanted from the Jedi, from the fist pumping action moments to the great philosophy and the way the two interconnect. And this specific book, Rising Storm, it's really great after reading so many Star Wars books in the last few years and throughout my entire life. This book is truly a different experience. It's structured differently. It moves differently. It is like a tragedy of action. It's a really different book, and that's a thing to celebrate when a book can celebrate all of these themes of Star Wars that are consistent throughout Star Wars, but really approach them from a different way is a real thrill.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm going to ask a fun question to wrap up, Ken, and then you can get to your Charhound. If you were trying to survive the Republic Fair, which Jedi would you want protecting you?
I mean, I love Elzar Mann, but I'm not going with it's Indira Stokes. It's clearly the right answer here. Elzar might end up squished or interrupting a makeout session. So I'm going Indira Stokes.
Yeah, it's Indira for me. And then if Indira is not available, I would like to hear the history lesson of Oberlin as he
right
defends me.
And then my backup choice is my guy Porter, so we can have a good meal afterwards. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but he's got the earworm. He's humming the Unity and song. So
that's all right. I love Disneyland. I go in small world every time. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, and I should really give Oberlin full credit. He helps get the journalist where she needs to be, and she makes connection. She reaches out to the galaxy, and so didn't mean to insult Oberlin by choosing him second. Indira or Oberlin would be fine. Anyway, with that, we're going to wrap up here quickly. Ken, do you want to let people know where they can find us?
Absolutely. We are the ForceCenter Podcast. We'll be found on Twitter at ForceCenter Pod. We're on Instagram and YouTube as well. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. Our podcast is available in a lot of different spots, including Anchor, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Amazon Music, and Spotify. Merch is available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. You can support us directly at Patreon at patreon.com/ForceCenter. We have got the top tier. If you support, you get some trading cards of me, Joseph, and Jennifer Landa, designed by the great Brian Ward. You can follow me at Ken Napzok. Go to my website, kennapzok.com. And you, Joseph.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Joseph Scrimshaw, and you can check out my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for all my other comedy adventures. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for all the Charhounds out there, this has been ForceCenter.